I never imagined that standing up for myself would cost me everything I thought was family, but looking back now, I realize I never really had them to begin with. I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how my entire family turned against me for refusing to cover up my sister's lies, and how their betrayal became the best thing that ever happened to me. My sister Vanessa has always been the type of person who could charm her way out of anything. 3 years younger than me, she learned early on that batting her eyelashes and playing victim got her exactly what she wanted. While I spent my teenage years working part-time jobs and saving for college, Vanessa spent hers borrowing money she never paid back and creating drama wherever she went. But somehow, in my parents' eyes, she could do no wrong. I was the responsible one, which in family terms meant I was boring, forgettable, the one who didn't need attention because I had my life together. After college, I landed a solid job as a financial analyst. Nothing glamorous, but stable with good benefits and room to grow. I rented a small apartment, paid my bills on time, and slowly built a life I was proud of. Vanessa, meanwhile, dropped out of community college twice, moved back home, and cycled through boyfriends like seasons. Yet every family dinner, every holiday gathering, the conversation always centered around her. What Vanessa was doing, who Vanessa was dating, how Vanessa just needed time to find herself. I became background noise in my own family. But what happened last year changed everything, and I mean everything. It started when Vanessa began dating Marcus, a guy who seemed decent enough at first. He had a good job, treated her well, and my parents were thrilled. Finally, they said, she found someone stable. They started planning futures, talking about grandchildren, acting like Vanessa had won the lottery. Then 6 months into their relationship, Vanessa announced they were engaged. My parents threw an engagement party that cost more than my entire wedding budget would ever be. I smiled through it, congratulated them, and tried to be happy for her. What I didn't know, what nobody knew except Vanessa, was that she had been cheating on Marcus for months. And here's where the story takes a turn that still makes my blood boil. I found out by accident. I was at a coffee shop working on my laptop when I saw Vanessa walk in with a man who definitely wasn't Marcus. They were all over each other, kissing, holding hands, whispering and laughing like teenagers. My stomach dropped. I sat there frozen, watching my sister betray someone who loved her, someone our entire family had welcomed with open arms. I didn't confront her that day. I went home, sick to my stomach, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to pretend I never saw anything. Life would be easier that way. But another part of me, the part that actually had a conscience, knew Marcus deserved to know the truth. He was a good person. He didn't deserve to marry someone who was lying to his face. So after 3 sleepless nights, I made a decision that would destroy my relationship with my family forever. I told Marcus what I saw. His reaction was heartbreaking. He didn't yell or get angry. He just looked defeated, like he had suspected something but hoped he was wrong. He thanked me quietly, his voice shaking, and said he needed time to think. I didn't hear from him for a week. Then Vanessa called me, and that phone call is burned in my memory forever. She was screaming so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She called me every name in the book, told me I was jealous, bitter, that I couldn't stand seeing her happy. She said I had ruined her life, destroyed her future, and that I would regret this for the rest of my miserable existence. I tried to explain that I was just being honest, that Marcus deserved to know, but she wasn't listening. She hung up on me mid-sentence. 20 minutes later, my mom called. I expected her to be the voice of reason, to understand why I did what I did. Instead, she opened with, "How could you do this to your sister?" I was stunned into silence. My mother, the woman who raised me to value honesty and integrity, was angry at me for telling the truth. She told me that family handles things privately, that I should have come to Vanessa first, that I had humiliated her in front of Marcus, and now the engagement was off. I asked her point blank, "So you think I should have let Vanessa marry Marcus while she was cheating on him?" My mom's response still haunts me. She said, "That's not the point. You don't air family business to outsiders." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marcus wasn't an outsider. He was supposed to become family. And even if he was an outsider, he was a human being who deserved honesty. But my mom didn't see it that way. To her, Protecting Vanessa's image was more important than protecting Marcus from a lie. My dad called next, and he was worse. He didn't yell, but his tone was cold, distant, like I was a stranger. He told me I had always been jealous of Vanessa, that I couldn't handle her being happy, and that my actions proved I was a selfish, vindictive person. I tried to defend myself, but he cut me off and said, "Until you apologize to your sister and make this right, don't bother coming around." Then he hung up. Just like that, my own father disowned me for refusing to participate in a lie. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Vanessa played the victim perfectly. She told everyone that I had sabotaged her relationship because I was jealous. She posted cryptic messages on social media about betrayal and fake family members. My aunts, uncles, and cousins all reached out, but not to check on me. They want to know why I would do something so cruel. Some of them didn't even bother asking my side of the story. They just assumed I was the villain because that's what Vanessa told them. My own grandmother, who I used to visit every Sunday, stopped answering my calls. I felt completely isolated. My family had chosen Vanessa's lies over my truth. I spent nights crying, questioning whether I had made the right choice. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. Maybe I should have let Vanessa marry Marcus and deal with the consequences later. But deep down, I knew I couldn't have lived with myself if I had stayed silent. Marcus didn't deserve that, and honestly, neither did I. I deserve a family that valued truth over image, but clearly I didn't have that. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus reached out to me. He asked if we could meet for coffee, and I hesitantly agreed. When we sat down, he looked tired but relieved. He told me that after I told him about Vanessa, he hired a private investigator and found out the cheating had been going on for over 4 months. He said breaking off the engagement was the hardest thing he ever did, but it was also the right thing. Then he said something that made me cry. He thanked me. He said I had more integrity than anyone in my family, and that he was grateful I cared enough about him to tell him the truth, even though I knew it would cost me. That conversation changed everything for me. I realized that doing the right thing isn't always easy, and it doesn't always come with a reward. Sometimes it costs you everything, but also shows you who people really are. My family had shown me their true colors, and as painful as it was, I needed to see it. They valued appearances over honesty. They valued Vanessa's feelings over basic decency, and they were willing to throw me away to protect her lies. But here's where things got interesting. A few months later, Vanessa started dating someone new. His name was Tyler, and he seemed like another nice guy who had no idea what he was getting into. My family welcomed him with open arms, eager to move past the Marcus drama and pretend it never happened. They threw dinners, posted pictures, and acted like everything was perfect. I watched from a distance, no longer invited to family events, no longer part of their inner circle. It hurt, but I was starting to build a life without them. Then one day, I got a message from someone I didn't know. It was Tyler's sister. She had heard about what happened with Marcus and wanted to know the truth. Apparently, Tyler had mentioned that his girlfriend's family didn't talk to her sister anymore, and his sister was suspicious. I told her everything, not to cause drama, but because she asked and I wasn't going to lie. I sent her the timeline, the facts, and let her make her own decision about what to do with that information. A week later, Vanessa called me from a number I didn't recognize. She was crying hysterically, screaming that I had ruined her life again. Apparently, Tyler's sister had told him everything, and Tyler broke up with Vanessa on the spot. He told her he couldn't trust someone who had cheated before and whose own family enabled her behavior. Vanessa blamed me entirely. She said I was obsessed with destroying her happiness, that I was a miserable person who couldn't stand to see her succeed. I listened quietly, and for the first time, I didn't defend myself. I just said, "I didn't ruin anything, Vanessa." "You did," and then I hung up. That phone call was the last time I spoke to my sister. But the fallout was far from over. My parents called me next, and this time they were furious. My mother actually said, "Why can't you just let your sister be happy?" I almost laughed. Let her be happy. She was building her happiness on lies and manipulation, and they expected me to support that. I told my mom, "I'm not stopping Vanessa from being happy. I'm just not going to lie for her anymore. If that makes me the villain in this family, then so be it." My mom started crying, saying I was tearing the family apart, that I was selfish and cruel. My dad got on the phone and said, "You're no longer welcome in this house. You've made your choice." I told him, "No, you made your choice when you picked her lies over my truth," and I hung up. The next few months were a strange mix of grief and relief. I grieved the family I thought I had, the parents I thought would always have my back, the sister I once protected and looked out for. But I also felt relief. Relief that I no longer had to pretend. Relief that I didn't have to walk on eggshells or dim my integrity to fit into their dysfunction. I started therapy, which helped me process the betrayal and understand that I wasn't crazy. My therapist told me something that stuck with me. She said, "Healthy families don't punish honesty. They don't exile the person who refuses to lie. That's not love. That's control." Around this time, I started reconnecting with old friends. People I had drifted away from because I was so consumed with trying to earn my family's approval. These friends welcomed me back with open arms. They listened to my story without judgment. They validated my feelings and reminded me that I deserved better. Slowly, I started building a new support system, one based on mutual respect and real love, not obligation and manipulation. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got a message from my cousin Rachel. She was one of the few relatives who hadn't completely cut me off, though we rarely spoke. She told me that the family was starting to see cracks in Vanessa's story. Apparently, Vanessa had been caught in several other lies, smaller ones, but enough to make people question her character. Rachel said people were whispering, wondering if maybe I'd been telling the truth all along. But even with doubts creeping in, no one reached out to apologize. No one admitted they were wrong. They just stayed silent, hoping the whole thing would blow over. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Even if they eventually realized I was right, they weren't going to apologize. They weren't going to admit they had treated me horribly. Their pride wouldn't allow it. So I made a decision. I wasn't waiting for an apology that would never come. I was moving on with my life, with or without them. I threw myself into my career. I got a promotion at work, which came with a significant raise and more responsibilities. I started traveling, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. I visited places I'd only dreamed about, ate amazing food, met incredible people, and slowly, the pain of losing my family started to fade. It didn't disappear completely, but it became manageable. I realized that blood doesn't make you family. Love, respect, and integrity make you family, and my biological family had none of those things. Then came the moment I had been both dreading and anticipating. It was Thanksgiving, a holiday I used to spend with my parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins. This year, I wasn't invited. Instead, I spent it with friends who had become my chosen family. We cooked together, laughed until our stomachs hurt, and shared what we were grateful for. When it was my turn, I said I was grateful for the truth, even when it cost me everything, because it showed me who truly loved me. Everyone at that table understood what I meant, and I felt more at home than I ever had at my parents' house. But life has a funny way of bringing things full circle. A few weeks after Thanksgiving, I ran into Marcus at a bookstore. We hadn't spoken in months, and seeing him was awkward at first, but we ended up talking for over an hour. He told me he was doing well, that he had started therapy after the breakup and realized he had dodged a bullet with Vanessa. He said he was grateful every single day that I had told him the truth, even though it hurt at the time. Then he said something that surprised me. He asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, not as a date, but as friends. I agreed, and that dinner turned into regular hangouts. Marcus became one of my closest friends, someone who understood what I had gone through because he had experienced Vanessa's manipulation firsthand. Meanwhile, my family's perfect image continued to crumble. Vanessa's pattern of lying caught up with her in ways I never could have predicted. She got fired from a job for falsifying her resume. She was kicked out of a friend group for spreading malicious rumors. And her relationship with my parents became strained because even they started to see through her act. My cousin Rachel kept me updated, not because I asked, but because she thought I deserved to know. She told me my parents were starting to realize they had made a mistake, but they were too proud to admit it. Then one evening, I got a call from my mom. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was shaky, almost fragile. She asked how I was doing, and I gave her a polite, surface-level answer. There was a long pause, and then she said, "I think we made a mistake." Not an apology, not an acknowledgement of the pain they caused, just a vague admission that maybe they were wrong. I didn't let her off the hook. I asked her directly, "Do you think I lied about Vanessa cheating?" Another long pause. Then she said quietly, "No, I don't think you lied." But she still couldn't bring herself to say she was sorry. I told her, "Until you're ready to actually apologize and take responsibility for how you treated me, we don't have anything to talk about." She started to protest, but I cut her off. I said, "You chose Vanessa's lies over my truth. You kicked me out of the family for being honest. That's not something I can just forgive and forget without a real apology. And until you're ready to give me that, I'm going to keep living my life without you." And then I hung up. That conversation was both painful and empowering. Painful because part of me still wanted my mom to fight for me, to beg for forgiveness, to prove that I mattered to her. But empowering because I stood my ground. I didn't crumble. I didn't accept breadcrumbs of acknowledgement disguised as reconciliation. I demanded what I deserved, respect, and a genuine apology, and I wasn't going to settle for less. Months turned into a year, and my life continued to flourish. I got another promotion, bought a small house, and adopted a dog who became my constant companion. I dated casually, traveled more, and deepened my friendships with people who actually valued me. My chosen family threw me a housewarming party, and standing in my living room surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, I realized something profound. I had spent so many years trying to earn my family's love, trying to be good enough, responsible enough, quiet enough to not upset the balance. But I was never the problem. They were. And cutting them out of my life wasn't a loss. It was a gain. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. One afternoon, I got a Facebook message from Tyler, Vanessa's ex. He apologized for reaching out, but said he needed to tell me something. He had recently started dating someone new, and during a conversation about past relationships, he mentioned Vanessa. His new girlfriend happened to know her too, and the story she told painted a picture of someone who had been manipulating and lying for years. Tyler said he felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner, but he was grateful that his sister had warned him before he got in too deep. He thanked me again for being honest, even though it cost me my family. His message made me cry, not out of sadness, but out of validation. I had done the right thing, and people were finally starting to see it. Around the same time, my cousin Rachel told me that Vanessa's life was falling apart. She had burned too many bridges, told too many lies, and now even my parents were keeping their distance. Rachel said my mom had mentioned me several times, always with regret in her voice, but still no apology. My dad, stubborn as ever, refused to admit he was wrong. But the cracks in their perfect family facade were impossible to ignore. Relatives who used to worship Vanessa were now skeptical of everything she said. The golden child had lost her shine, and the scapegoat they had thrown away was thriving. Then came the moment I never expected. It was a random Tuesday evening when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother standing on my porch, looking older and more tired than I remembered. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there with tears in her eyes. Finally, she said, "Can I come in?" I hesitated, every instinct telling me to protect myself, but I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in my living room in awkward silence until she finally spoke. She told me she was sorry. Not the vague, half-hearted sorry from our phone call, but a real, tearful apology. She admitted that she had been wrong to take Vanessa's side, wrong to kick me out, wrong to value appearances over truth. She said she had spent the last year watching Vanessa self-destruct and realizing that I had been right all along. I listened, my arms crossed, my guard still up. Part of me wanted to forgive her on the spot, to hug her and pretend everything was okay. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt so deeply, wasn't ready. I asked her why it took her so long. Why did she wait until Vanessa's lies became undeniable? Why didn't she believe me from the start? My mom didn't have a good answer. She just cried and said she had made a terrible mistake. I told her that I appreciated the apology, but trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. If she wanted a relationship with me, it would take time, effort and consistent proof that she had actually changed. She nodded, understanding that I wasn't going to make this easy for her. And honestly, I didn't know her easy. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. We talked for another hour, and by the end, I told her I was willing to try, slowly, carefully, with clear boundaries. But I also made it clear that if she ever chose Vanessa's lies over my truth again, I was done for good. She agreed, and for the first time in over a year, I saw a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something. My dad, however, never apologized. He stayed silent, stubborn, convinced that admitting he was wrong would somehow diminish him. And you know what? I made peace with that. I realized I didn't need his apology to move forward. His refusal to acknowledge his mistakes said everything I needed to know about his character. I could still live a full, happy life without his validation. As for Vanessa, I haven't spoken to her since that last phone call. I've heard through the grapevine that she's still struggling, still lying, still playing the victim. Part of me feels sad for her because she's trapped in a cycle of her own making. But I also know that she chose this path. She could have been honest. She could have taken responsibility. Instead, she chose to lie, manipulate, and blame everyone else for her problems. And now she's reaping what she sowed. Looking back on everything, I don't regret telling Marcus the truth. I don't regret standing my ground with my family. Yes, it cost me relationships, caused me pain, and forced me to rebuild my life from scratch. But it also gave me something invaluable: self-respect. I learned that I don't need to shrink myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. I don't need to lie to keep the peace. I don't need to accept crumbs of love from people who should be giving me the whole loaf. Today, I'm happier than I've ever been. I have a career I'm proud of, a home I love, friends who feel like family, and a clear conscience. I sleep well at night, knowing I did the right thing, even when it was hard. And if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. Because every painful moment, every betrayal, every loss led me to where I am now. And where I am now is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Free, honest, and finally at peace.